afternoon, everyone. It's my honor to be here. Thank you so much for your patience. The good news, I'm the last speaker today. All right, so my name is Yi Lu, and I'm the IB film teacher at QSI Shenzhen. A few months ago, I walked into my classroom. I told my students, today I'm going to give you an assignment. Let's create a horror film together. The room was erupted. I was expecting students were doing sketches, storyboard, argument fighting, and maybe even real fighting. However, I walked around until I saw almost everyone's screen has same thing. Which is, they opened this answer machine and then they typed, "Write me a horror film" on ChatGPT. At that moment, I felt there's some silence in the classroom. The silence was not a little bit different silence, not a silence of thinking, but a silence of waiting, waiting for an answer, waiting for entering comments. I understood. I look at this generation. This is not a generation who already lost creativity, but a generation who already trained to be answer searchers. I used to ask a question for a living by myself. I used to be a journalist. My job was sit across people and ask questions to make them pause, hesitate, and think. Nowadays, every day, actually, I find myself asking a question by myself. Where did our students' question go? In many classrooms, silence doesn't mean disengagement. It means students have learned a rule, which means our school, you don't need to ask questions. Our school, you only need answers. Answers for our test and the answers that we expect. That's why today I want to talk about this topic. Where is our questions? The silent classroom. How AI can restore the lost arts of questioning. Because silence is not absence of learning. It is the absence of permission. When people talk about AI in education, they usually worry about one thing, which is students will stop thinking. But I want to suggest something different. The real problem is not that AI make answers too easy, too fast. The real problem is that our classroom were already quiet long before AI arrived. We rewarded fast answers instead of thoughtful questions. We praised correctness instead of reasoning. We measured outcomes but ignored the thinking that get us there. AI did not create the problem. It held up a very honest mirror and made it impossible for us to look away. So I decided to make an experiment in my class. I teach IB film. As many film teachers, we do film vocabulary test. For example, we learn what is the close-up, we learn what is the negative space. For many years, I taught these terms. I say, okay, this is our vocabulary, this is the definitions, this is the examples, and you guys need to memorize, and we are going to have a quiz next class. However, this year, I changed my strategy. For my students, we had the very first test, like in the old way. And then for the second time, instead of asking students to study these vocabularies, I asked them to see it. How to see it? We used low-code AI filmmaking tools. This tool, what is low-code AI filmmaking tools? Which means we generate text into images and videos. And this is the process how I can see my students learning really get this idea, what is the negative space. And of course, many times the images were not 100% correct. For example, one of my students who was always quiet, and he said, the negative space doesn't feel lonely for this image. Actually, that's the moment of learning. We do not get 100% correct answers. we ask students to think. In that moment, negative space stopped being a definition. It became his judgment. Students revise it, they try it again, they compare it. And 2 weeks later, we had the same test again. And to my surprise, everyone's score has improved by 20%. This does not mean like how much score we could improve. It's about the thinking process. So, for example, let's go back to my horror film classroom. How I give students another assignment. I don't write me a horror film again. I change my strategy again. So I use this, for example, I use this teacher-centered avatar questioning process. So actually this is myself. I became like avatar, so students do not look at me 100 times per day and they feel so boring. And then from this, I'm not asking you write me a horror film again. I ask them, okay, for example, tell me the most important 3 elements you think you want to write about your horror film. For example, everyone can think about it. For example, darkness, sound effect, monsters, for example. And then based on their answer, I receive their answers. And then I could see how they want to create this film. Not just like ChatGPT, write me a horror film again. And this is where something extraordinary happened. One of my students who has ASD, so for me, it's a little bit hard for me to get answers and conversation with him for years, until we use this low-code AI filmmaking tools. And then he generated images and he made this short film by himself with other group members together. And for me, it's my first time to see the students' inner world, because it's very hard for him to write about his story and very hard for him to tell the story. But by using the technology as educator, it's my first time. I do not need to guessing what's his story. I was witnessing it. And also for our other students, so AI is also help them to improve their creativity. For example, for our 1, 2, 3, for our number 3 AI films here, for example, this one. Okay, so you can guess whether this is like a real person or AI generated person. Okay, so the answer was actually this film my students created is combine the reality they filmed at the Sihai Park, which is just like a block away from here. They generated like some AI images, so this is like AI generated person, but they filmed at the Sihai Park. So it's like combine the reality and the AI film together. And this is like, so they do different style. This is more like animation, because 2 years ago I had students who wanted to do animation and I said no, because we do not have the software. However, now these days all the problem has solved. And this is more like a real person AI films. So for this, like AI filmmaking, I feel like, especially for those learners whose thinking has always been brilliant, but never visible, this is the best opportunity for us as educators to see what's there in the world. And this is not only for our teenagers, for our bigger community. How can AI help us? For example, this is like app like we created for seniors to write their biography in 1 afternoon. Based on the 10 questions like I designed, you're going to have your table of contents in 10 minutes. And then based on the table of contents, AI is going to ask you more and more questions. It's not ghostwriting. It's like very sweet, gentle interviewer. And then you can create your cover. In 1 afternoon, you can have your own biography. So to conclude, actually, AI is not like only the answer machine to replace our students' thinking. AI could be a mirror, a prompt, a thinking partner. The real danger is not artificial intelligence. The real danger, which is answers over questions. So if today you sit down and you learned one thing today. I hope it's like this. Questions are the curriculum. It's not about our textbook, it's not about our syllabus or test. It's about questions. Our students is the future explorer, not just the searcher of tomorrow. So the next time, if you sit down and open your laptop with AI, please do not ask for question. Please find a better question. Thank you so much.